and I'd rather have this stuff, even though it's faster. So that's why Brian and I think are going to figure out how to package these types of foods where you can buy them and be healthy like we're being healthy. But you know, and some of you are thinking, because I had everybody ask me, why don't you do the gastric bypass surgery? Well, Brian, why shouldn't I do the gastric bypass surgery?
Well, I'm somebody that did have the gastric bypass surgery, and one thing I have to mention about that is, if your mental state isn't ready for weight loss, if you're mentally not there and you're not ready to make a change in your life, the surgery is not your answer. And the reason being is because it'll just temporarily cause you to not just be able to eat as much. But back in 2003, I had gastric bypass surgery, and I thought that was going to be my save-all. Now, I will say this. Temporarily, I think it saved my life. I think I was on death's door in 2003. That's when I was at my heaviest. Excuse me. I had my contract wasn't renewed from I was a radio talk show host. My contract hadn't been renewed from the radio station I was at, and I thought, man, this is my chance. I have time. I'm able to sit at home and do this. I did it, and I lost nearly 200 pounds over the course of 6 months. Over the course of the next 5.5 years, I gained back over 160 pounds of that 200 that I lost because I wasn't mentally there. And I thought that was going to be my savior. And instead, I stretched my stomach back out to normal size. And I remember going to my doctor after I was back up over 400 pounds again. And my doctor just said, well, your stomach's back to normal size. You're basically starting from scratch again. So you got to learn to do this right, because the surgery won't help if you're still not willing to make that change of how you feed your body.
Well, and Brian, tell them about the emotions that went along with that. Every day as you gained more and more weight, you got over the 400 pounds. And what did that do to you emotionally?
Oh, emotionally, I thought my life was over. Now, when I started, all of a sudden I'm back. I mean, again, I wasn't even weighing in. I didn't care. I knew I was gaining weight because all of a sudden I went from a size 62 waist down to a size, I believe I got down to about a 48, 46. And then I started going back up, and all of a sudden I'm in the 50s again, and all of a sudden I'm back up, and I'm like, geez, I'm back up to size 56 after going from a 62 to a 48, and I'm back, and then, you know, you just kind of give up, and I just thought, this is just how I'm meant to be. I'm meant to be fat. I'm meant to be miserable. And I was at a point, unlike JP, who was really happy with his job, I was at the time not happy with my job. I was a traffic reporter. We had some mergers and whatnot. It just wasn't fun anymore. It wasn't what I got into radio to do. I was sitting in a closet for literally 8 hours doing 80 traffic reports in 8 hours, and I had no contact with people. I'm a people person, man. I got to be around people and talk. So I was miserable at my job. I was miserable with my physical health. I was tired all the time. And my wife, she goes, this isn't the guy I married. This isn't the guy who was happy and was fun. And I mean, heck, you're the one that performed our ceremony. And she said, I changed so much over that time where and it was a depression. It really was. And I remember one weekend, excuse me, I had gotten so depressed that I didn't eat for the entire weekend. And mentally, that was a big, it was a big deal. Not that I starved myself, but then I remember at the end of that weekend going, I didn't eat all weekend. I wasn't hungry. I was literally, that's a depression thing. You know, I was depressed and not eating. And all of a sudden I realized I hadn't eaten all weekend. You know what? There's a little aspect of my life I have control over, because I thought my life was out of control. I thought this is just how things are going to be. I'm going to be miserable the rest of my life. Well, I go, gosh, I didn't eat all weekend. I controlled that. I can control what I put in my mouth. And so then I thought, well, if I can do that, then maybe I can start eating healthier. And that's when I started finding things that work for me. Like, for instance, getting turkey burgers and real small sweet potatoes. And, you know, and I started, okay, if I can do this. I had a little bit of control in my life again. And that little bit of control in my life, all of a sudden, that's why I said for me it was gradual. I started controlling that little food aspect. Well, darn it, all of a sudden, you know, year and a half later, I'd lost over 250 pounds. And in that time, I started taking a little bit more control over my life in other aspects. I thought, well, if I can do this, then maybe I can actually go out and exercise. I started walking my dogs a little bit more. Again, I was over 400 pounds. I couldn't, you know, just go on long walks. First of all, it wasn't good for my joints, and second of all, I physically just couldn't handle it. But I walked my dogs a block, and then a little longer, then a little longer. Well, I have a background in sports medicine, and I was an athletic trainer in college. And I thought, man, I know how to do this working out. We used to work out in high school. I know how to do it. So then I started working out at home. I bought some kettlebells, and I started doing my own workouts. And then I started buying heavier kettlebells. So again, this was gradual for me. Then I thought, man, I'm controlling a lot more in my life. So I remember going into work one day and just saying, here's my 2-week notice. I'm quitting and becoming a personal trainer. And I went and got I was in the process of getting my certification. And sure enough, at the end of all that, I took control of every aspect of my life, I guess, except for taxes.
Taxes, the government and taxes.
So that was a control issue for me. And now I have control over everything I do. If I don't want to train somebody, I don't train that person. I haven't found anybody I don't like to train as long as they put the effort in. But you get the idea. I do what I want to do now. And that's what you're doing now with your food. You're doing what you want to do now. You were already doing what you wanted to do for work.
That's right.
You have a great job and you help out a lot of people. Now you're helping yourself out, and it's becoming an overall great thing.
You know, and I think the keys, you know, and you've heard what Brian has said, it's got to be something that you can change. You know, it's got to be something you can live and live with. And so that's why the secret, if you want to know what the secret is, you got to learn to live within you. Live within who you are. Live within who you want to be. Live within the food you want to eat so that you can get healthy and lose weight. Everything I've eaten is fresh, not out of a can. It's not a diet food, and it all tastes amazing. All of you would love what I've made. In fact, when I cook in my office, everybody in the building wants to know how they can come and get whatever I'm cooking because it smells so good, but yet it takes less than 15 minutes and it's not complicated. But you got to learn to live within how you eat, how you want to be, where you want to be, and who you want to be with. You know, for me, the hardest part was saying, you know, if I'd have just started 6 months prior when I was complaining about it, think of where I would be, and yet here I am still at 477 pounds, just piling on more what I'm going to call food depression. And I just couldn't seem to get out of the cycle. And in March I said, enough's enough. I'm 43 years old. My health isn't bad. I'm not on any kind of medications. And so before I end up there, because I was becoming pre-diabetic, I started to get higher blood pressure, not high blood pressure, but I was getting there. And I said, enough's enough. And I took charge and I said, instead of me looking back from 6 months and going, why didn't I start? I'm going to start and see where I end up and just find out. And I'm going to eat what I want to eat and eat things that are good and very, very tasty for me, but I'm not going to diet. And so that's how I did it. That's the secret. And it's doing it every day. And then on Sundays, I'm going to tell you, on Sundays, again, if I want some cheese and crackers, I'm going to have some cheese and crackers. But then I know I'm done. And on Monday, I'm right back to where I need to be. You know, somebody told me a long time ago, it's kind of like your car. You're not going to put bad oil and bad gas in your car because your car is not going to run well, and eventually it'll break down and you'll have to get it repaired or you'll have to send it off to the dump. Well, your body's the same way. Why would you pour bad food after bad food after bad food into your body and expect your body to respond well? It's not going to respond well. It's going to be out of whack, mechanically not working right, which when I got into Brian working out, my left knee, I could barely walk. I was limping. In fact, it was funny. Somebody the other day said, you know, JP, hey, you're not limping anymore. And hey, wait a minute, hold up for me. You're walking a whole lot faster than I'm walking now. Because I started putting good in my mouth, good in my system. So now my system is running at a much higher octane than what it was 35 weeks ago. Here's the greatest part. If you'll stick to it and you'll do what's good for you and you can live within your food by volumizing your food, making yourself feel like you're eating a regular portion, which is what all these 3 plates are full of, is regular portions. This in front of you is less than 1,000 calories and you are going to be stuffed. I promise you this. If you do this, you will feel so much better and the weight will melt off of you in 35 weeks as well. I've told Brian, when I get down to that 260, 270, probably even Sundays are probably going to be a little bit lighter. I know I'm not going to be able to eat just whatever I want on a Sunday because I'm going to need to try and work harder to get down to that. But it doesn't mean that if I want a candy bar on Sunday, I'm not going to have a candy bar or a piece of chocolate, or I'm not going to not have a slice of pizza. And so I'm not going to deprive myself of those cravings. During the week, I know that I've got to eat right because I got to put good into my system so I feel good. And I look back now to March, and that's been, what is it, about 7 months? What is it, March, April, May, June, July? August, September, October, November, December. So we're at 10 months. In just 10 short months, I've lost 181 pounds. I have lost who I'm supposed to be at 5'9" on the doctor's scale when I'm supposed to weigh 185 pounds. I've lost a whole me.
Yep.
And that in itself is just amazing. And you can do it too. I promise you can do it. All the support that's pouring out, and Brian's getting to read it too, and I know it supports him as well because Brian is helping me exercise, right? And next Sunday, when we come to you, we're going to provide you with some more meal ideas, but we're going to talk next Sunday about exercise. And we may be in the gym next Sunday and show you that if you're 477 pounds, if you're in a wheelchair,
Yep.
if you're not very mobile, if you're geriatric and you can't move too much, we're going to show you, Brian is going to show you through me, how you can move, how you can exercise.
What's amazing is not only John coming to me at, excuse me, at 477 pounds, I have a client that's missing a leg in a wheelchair who's also overweight. I have a lady who came to me with, she has scoliosis and was having to actually lose weight and get stronger so she could have rods implanted in her back. I mean, I have people that have come to me who really think they can't do anything. And guess what? The lady that has the scoliosis, she lost 60 pounds, wouldn't have the surgery at the rods implanted in her back, and she healed faster than the doctors ever thought she would because she was eating right and exercising. And she came to me in her 60s.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, so it's never too late. Just don't get it. Once you get started in something like this, don't get down on yourself and saying, "Gosh, I wish I would have started this sooner." Just say, "Thank God I'm doing it now."
And again, it's not something you're going to stop doing. You have to learn to live within this healthier lifestyle. And instead of calling it a lifestyle, which again, to me always wraps my head around it, I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. It's more about how I'm living. And how can I live? How can I, me, myself, and I, not Brian the way he lives, not the way anybody else lives. Because to be honest with you, here's the truth of it. Outside of me calling Brian and saying, hey, Brian, is this good for me to eat or not? I created all my own meals.
Mm-hmm.
I created all my own eating plan because I know what I want. Brian
I did the same.
doesn't know what I want. Brian did the same thing.
Yeah.
Brian knows what Brian wants. So you have to live within who you are. Now, for those of you who are snackers out there, because you're just like, you know what, I love to snack, JP, and I have to have something constantly in my hand to my mouth. You know what? All doctors will tell you, Brian will tell you, grab a handful of almonds, 5 or 10 almonds. Now, not chocolate covered, not cinnamon sugar dusted, you know,
Not honey roasted.
Not honey roasted, just plain old simple almonds, 5 or 10 of them, and that'll get you by. Or natural sugars. These are blackberries. I love blackberries. Next week I'm going to show you how I make a whole meal out of what I'm getting ready to show you, and you're full. But grab a handful of blackberries. Grab a handful of blueberries. We looked these up, and the whole containers were how much again offhand? I can't remember.
Oh, I think 60 calories
60
for a whole
calories.
container.
Grab a handful of them. You're eating about 20, 25 calories worth of blueberries, and they're good for you. I mean, get the ones that are big. I've learned this. The small little blueberries, way tart, oh my God, yuck. The big fat ones are really good and full of sugar. Grab some raspberries. Grab a handful of raspberries and put some raspberries down. Or if you're in the mood for crunchy, this is a Honeycrisp apple. Now you'll notice this is not an apple that's been giganticized, right? Just a regular old Honeycrisp apple. And what we figured out, we looked it up on the website for apples.
Yeah.
And we found out that this apple right here is about 60 calories,
Yeah.
is what we have figured out. And it's a Honeycrisp apple. This here is PB2. Now I love peanut butter, but when I looked at the back of Jiffy peanut butter, which I have in the cupboard over there, I couldn't believe how many calories was in it. There were 190 calories for 2 tablespoons. The sugars and carbohydrates were off the charts. And I'm like, oh, this isn't gonna work. I'm not gonna ever be able to have peanut butter again. And then I went to the store, somebody had told me about PB2. So I called Brian, hey Brian, can I have this PB2 stuff? And Brian said,
Yep.
absolutely.
Because I actually, that's how I started off, was on PB2. And I started, I go through so much, it's called peanut flour. And I go through so much of it, I buy it in bulk online now.
And you can get it in bulk. You can get it at Sam's now in a 5-pound container, and also Costco. But PB2 only has 45 calories for 2 tablespoons. It has almost no sugar in it. Let's see, yeah, a gram of sugar, 5 carbohydrates, but it's got 2 fibers in it. If you're doing a diabetic diet, you know the fiber takes off the carbohydrates. So it's only got 3 carbs in it for 2 tablespoons. The nice thing is, you can make it as thick as you want it,